Ward is clearly the Tennessee Titans' number one X factor this season, but there are two other players who I think are just as important. I'll tell you who they are on today's edition of Locked On Titans.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, on today's show, we're going to start Top 3 week, where I go through different top 3 lists throughout the entire week. We're going to start on today's show with the Tennessee Titans top 3 X Factor players. We're going to talk about the top 3 players who it's a make or break season for, and we're going to go over 3 players who I think could be likely disappointments. Excited for you guys to play along with me. If you're watching on YouTube, throw your top 3s down in the comment section below. If not, hit me up on Twitter at TicTacTitans, on Instagram at Locked On Titans, on TikTok at TikTok Titans, on Facebook at Locked On Titans. It doesn't matter. Wherever you are, I'm at. Find me there. With that being said, before we dive in, though, do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day. Shout out to my everydayers out there. Tuning in Monday through Friday. It may be summer break for the Titans, but there is no summer break for Locked On Titans. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, always free and always will be. With that being said, though, the number one X Factor, if we're doing the top 3 X Factor players for the Tennessee Titans, is clearly Cam Ward. I don't need to bury the lead. I don't need to pretend like it's something else. Cam Ward is the number one most important X Factor player to the Titans. If the Titans are going to be bad, a lot of it probably had to do with Cam Ward not playing that well. If the Titans are going to be good, a lot of it probably has to do with the improvement in quarterback play. Like, a lot of the, excuse me, I'm bronchitis, but a lot of the hope around the Tennessee Titans, and honestly, not even like local hope, not even like people who are associated with the team, people who cover the team on a day-to-day basis, but national people who don't follow the Tennessee Titans every single day and aren't tapped in. Most of the hope and optimism from that group of people comes from the improvement in quarterback play. And the stat that I always see is last year the Titans quarterbacks had 22 touchdown passes to 21 interceptions. And the quarterback play has to be better than that. So if they just have improved quarterback play with what they already have, they'll probably be better than what they were last year. And I mean, even though that comes from outside national sources who aren't as locked in on the Tennessee Titans as me or you, honestly, that's a strong argument to make. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, better quarterback play probably would make for a better team, and that's why the Titans took Cam Ward number one overall. So we don't need to play some game where I'm like, actually, the most important player for the Titans is, no, it's Cam Ward. It was Will Levis last year, and it's Cam Ward this year. And it's probably going to be Cam Ward next year. And quite frankly, if Cam Ward is the player that we all hope that he is, I want him to be the number one X Factor. Because I want Cam Ward to play well, to be a rising tide that lifts all boats. And think about how much better the run game can be with a competent passing game. Think about how much better Calvin Ridley can be. Think about how much better just the receiving weapons in general can be with accurate, improved quarterback play. Think about how much better Brian Callahan would be. And honestly, I'm doing players, but if we just, excuse me again, if we just did a list of X Factors, Brian Callahan might be at the top of that. So you can make him like an honorable mention in here if you want. But again, we don't need to play this game. Cam Ward's the number one X Factor. But I think there are 2 guys who might be just as important. And the first one is L'Jarius Sneed. And it's funny that L'Jarius Sneed is the guy that I'm going to bring up here. We got some L'Jarius Sneed news over the weekend. Sneed was at a football camp, and he spoke with a local TV station. I think it's from the area that he's from. He was holding a football camp, his own football camp, right? And he did an interview with a local television station, and I've retweeted it on Twitter or X, whatever. It'll always be Twitter to me, like the San Diego Chargers, San Diego. But he said, "I'm as healthy as I've been." That's literally his quote. "I'm as healthy as I've been." So he's saying, "I'm healthy. I'm ready. I'm good to go. I'm ready." He said, "I'm ready to get back on the field and remind people who L'Jarius Sneed is." Well, the Tennessee Titans need you to get back on the field and remind people who L'Jarius Sneed is. Like, we'll talk about the biggest issues, and last week we talked about some of the biggest questions coming out of mandatory minicamp for the Titans going forward. Like, what are we worried about most? And I think one of the things that people didn't take into account was cornerback. If L'Jarius Sneed were to get re-injured, if L'Jarius Sneed is not ready to play at the beginning of the season, by God, like, that would be insane. Week 6 last year, and you're still not ready to play by the start of the season. If he goes on PUP or something like that, the Titans cornerback room is a disaster. We're going to talk about Jarvis Brownlee Jr. in a different top 3 list later on this week, and we'll have more of a discussion on him. But Jarvis Brownlee Jr. had a good season. It wasn't like, oh, this guy is an elite cornerback forever. Like, he looks like he's going to be a solid starter. Yeah. But Jarvis Brownlee Jr. isn't Derek Stingley or something like that all of a sudden. And Roger McCreary, very good football player, underrated football player that more people should know about. But he's a slot-only cornerback. He can't play outside. We've played this game before. We've done this test. And then outside of those guys, Darrell Baker, Gabe Jeudy-Lawley, undrafted free agent Jamari Harris. We could talk about 6th-round pick Marcus Harris, but I think he's more of a slot guy. He's a smaller, slender, skinnier guy. So this cornerback room is going to be an outright disaster without L'Jarius Sneed. So that's one side of the X factor. Again, the defense could be despicably bad because the cornerback group isn't good enough if he's not out there. But if L'Jarius Sneed comes back and is L'Jarius Sneed, if he does come back and remind everybody who he is, a top 5, top 10 press man, physical cornerback that had us all super hype last year, I doubt, it's hard to believe that we do get that from L'Jarius Sneed at any point in time in his Titans career. Very difficult to believe that. But if we do, this Titans defense could be absolutely 10 times better than we think it could be right now. And I think the Titans defense could be decent again, but if Sneed is at peak powers, that takes the Titans defense to a different level. Speaking of the defense going to another level, I think Femi Oladejo is the third guy. Those are my top 3 biggest X Factor players for the Titans this year. Cam Ward, number 1. L'Jarius Sneed, number 2. And Femi Oladejo, number 3. Like, I think that the Titans offense, at its ceiling is capped. The Titans simply don't have enough talent on offense to be an incredible offense. I think they can be league average. And if the Titans are a league average offense, that's a massive improvement, right? Like, they'll probably win more games with a league average offense. But the defense, I think the defense does have the ability to be as good as people thought it was last year. The Titans defense was massively overrated, in my opinion, due to the yardage numbers. And the yardage numbers had a lot to do with the turnovers, had a lot to do with the special teams play. Other offenses didn't need to rack up a bunch of yards against the Titans because they were getting the ball at the 40-yard line after a turnover or a big return. So you look at the third down defense, you look at the red zone defense, the run defense had moments where it completely fell off a map. So I don't think the Titans defense was as good as people think. Like, people say to me, 32nd offense, second defense, second overall defense. That was not the second best defense in the NFL last year. Give me a break. All right? That's insane. All right, I watched every game, watched the tape multiple times. I'm sorry. That's not a top 2 defense in the NFL. Let's quit playing ourselves for a moment. But L'Jarius Sneed plays well. And Femi Oladejo, if he can come out in year one and be Harold Landry level contributors, 8 to 10 sacks. Consistent starter throughout the season. If Femi can come in right away and be a solid starting edge rusher for this defense and produce 8 to 10 sacks, which would have been tops on the team last year because Harold Landry was tops on the team. If Femi can do that, look, there is nothing that can happen, in my opinion, that will make this a great pass rush. Well, if Femi Oladejo turns into a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL as a rookie, like pure Javon Curse, then sure. But realistically, there's basically nothing that can happen that would take the Titans pass rush from where I see it, which is bottom 5 in the NFL, bottom 8 in the NFL, bad, to really good. But if Femi is good right away, he could take the pass rush from bad to average. An average pass rush with the other little pieces that this defense has, with L'Jarius Sneed at peak powers and Cam Ward being worth the number 1 overall pick and looking like a franchise quarterback right away, quite honestly, if all 3 of those things happen and all 3 of those players hit their peak this year, the Titans are going to the playoffs. The Titans are going to the playoffs. Now, the odds are that all 3 players don't absolutely hit their peak, but the fact that they have that sort of impact and have that sort of influence on the season is what makes them my top 3 X factors. Now, I will say Dan Moore was another guy who I considered, and then I thought about like an Alec Ioman or one of the rookie pass catchers, because if they take a massive leap, now that changes the overall tenor of the receiving core. But ultimately, realistically speaking, I think Cam Ward, L'Jarius Sneed, Femi Oladejo are the top 3 X factors, but I'm excited to hear what you guys have to think. Regardless, we're moving forward. Which players is 2025 a make or break year for? Tyjae Spears is in that group. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. For me personally, I just started really getting into investments and things like that, and to be able to use the Monarch Money system to constantly monitor all of these different things and plan long-term goals. It is a all-in-one financial hub. Again, a complete financial command center. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about the 3 biggest X factors for the Tennessee Titans. Again, excited to hear your guys' feedback on that. But now I want to move over to the players that it's a make or break for. Now or never, you could say, for some players. And it's for different reasons. Not all 3 players that I have here are for the same reason. Now, they all have a general through line, of course, but different things. And it'll make sense when I start to get into the players. The first player that I want to talk about is Jeffrey Simmons. Now, before I do, thanks again for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day, Monday through Friday. Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day, and that's literally every day of the week, Monday through Friday, all year round. Whether I'm sick, I'm on vacation, it doesn't matter. You get your content, and I'll tell you guys the honest truth. I'm struggling through this one. I am. I'm plowing through, but it's time. If you guys see any cuts or anything that feels weird timing-wise, it's probably because I had to stop and then go die and cough up my lungs. But with that being said, it's a make-or-break episode for me, and it's a make-or-break year for Jeffrey Simmons. I know it sounds crazy to be like make or break. Jeffrey Simmons is a 2-time All-Pro. Jeffrey Simmons is one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. Nothing's going to change that. And I agree. I agree to a point. But I think it's a make or break season for Jeffrey Simmons in the sense of, is he one of the pillars that the future of this team is going to be built on? I've talked about it throughout the offseason when I talked about him not being at the voluntary stuff, and then how important it was that he was at mandatory minicamp and all of the reports about his impact on the field and all that difference. Is like, yeah, that's why I wanted him at the voluntary stuff. So that impact that we're all acknowledging, and we can all look at it and say, wow, Jeffrey Simmons being out there for mandatory minicamp and talking trash with Cam Ward and being a leader and being productive and, you know, working with the interior offensive line that the Titans are trying to develop and giving them iron sharpens iron situations, as everybody says and all that. Jeffrey Simmons' presence matters. So it's funny that we can be like, oh, wow, look how big of an impact Big Jeff had now that he's there. But those same people can't also acknowledge, oh, it would be better if he was there even for the voluntary stuff because he has a major impact. It's like you can't have both of those things at the same time. You can't. But outside of that conversation, is Big Jeff good enough to be the second best player on a Super Bowl team? We need it to be Cam Ward. He needs to be number one. But is Big Jeff good enough to be the guy that can be that for the Titans? Is he the guy that's going to be a leader? There have been people who cover the team on a day-to-day basis who have questioned his leadership. Multiple people who you would know have questioned his leadership. It's not an isolated situation. So, for me, it's not make or break about whether Jeffrey Simmons is going to be a good player or this and that or whatever. It's make or break of, is Jeff part of the long-term plan here? And honestly, the answer probably won't be something we see in the public. Now, part of that answer is on the field. Like, on the field, is Jeffrey Simmons living up to his contract? That's obviously part of it. But behind the scenes, in the locker room, is he living up to what he needs to? It's make or break for Jeffrey Simmons in that regard for the Titans this season, as I throw in a nice cough drop, try to make my way through. But the second player on my list is Tyjae Spears. Because after that rookie year, Spears looked like a versatile, do-it-all threat, could probably do some kick return, obviously going to catch the ball out of the backfield. Think about the last game of Tyjae Spears' rookie season when he catches that screen pass against Jacksonville and scores. It's like, wow, we got an electric playmaker here. And then you go into year two and you're like, okay, it's time for Tyjae Spears to take a big step forward. It's time for him to not just be Derrick Henry's Robin, but grow into Nightwing yourself. And if you don't know what I mean by that, congratulations, you're not an uber nerd, okay? But Robin becomes Nightwing when he grows up. And it's time for Tyjae Spears to grow up from Derrick Henry's Robin and be a Nightwing. Now, it doesn't mean he's got to do it all on his own. Tony Pollard can still be his Batman, and they can help each other and work as a team. But Tyjae Spears has to be better than what he was last year. And it's not just staying healthy and being on the field, which obviously is a critical part of it, but be better in general. Now, Spears got better at the end of the year, and maybe it was him getting over the injury, but after all that talk about him not having an ACL in his knee, for injuries to be a reason that we're disappointed with Tyjae Spears, that sucks. That you don't want that. So, it's make or break for Tyjae Spears. If Spears doesn't stay healthy and have a productive season, you can't count on him in year 4. This is his third year. Next year will be the last year of his rookie contract. And if he doesn't stay healthy, I think Spears needs to not just be second to Tony Pollard this year. He needs to be a co-leader. This needs to be a co-headline show. And if Tyjae wants to be a player who can even dream of being a lead back, it has to start this year. It's make or break for Tyjae Spears this season in terms of who he is going to be as a player going forward throughout his career. And I want it to work out. I'm a big Tyjae Spears fan. But the truth is the truth. Last year wasn't good enough, and your time runs out quick in the NFL. A down year 3 for Tyjae Spears could spell doom, quite honestly, especially with how easy it is to replace running backs. Tyjae was taken in the 3rd round. You could probably get a running back in the 4th or 5th round to do more than what Tyjae Spears has done so far. That's the truth of running back in the draft. Think about a player like Bucky Irving and what he did last year. Like, that's what's happening with mid-round running backs. So what Tyjae has done so far, excuse me, it's not good enough. It's not. And the last player that it's make or break for, again, different reasonings. Jeffrey Simmons, it's about long-term future with the team. Tyjae Spears is about your role as a player going forward in the NFL. Josh Wiley is my last make or break player, and his is, will he make the roster? I found it interesting that in Jim Wyatt from TennesseeTitans.com, you can go check out the piece yourself. He does a mailbag pretty often. Always a fun read. I'm not going to lie, as a Titans fan. When you work for the team, there's only so much you can say and do. But the way some people send in their questions, which I understand how harsh and just rude people can be sometimes. But Jim really takes these people and swats them down in here. And this didn't happen with the Josh Wiley thing. You guys, I sound like Marge's sisters from The Simpsons right now. But Jim said in his mailbag, David Martin Robinson caught his eye way more than Josh Wiley did during the all-season program and mandatory minicamp. And David Martin Robinson caught 10 passes. In my first 53-man roster projection, I had David Martin Robinson making the football team. I think he could take a step forward this year. I had Josh Wiley making it too, but with a guy like Gunnar Helm, who has a similar skill set to a guy like Josh Wiley, that long, tall vibe, contested catch, blah, blah, blah. With all of that, and then David Martin Robinson taking a step forward, do the Titans really want to keep Josh Wiley around? Why would he be around? Gunnar Helm is the same kind of player, but better. David Martin Robinson is kind of a bridge between Chig Okonkwo. He's a Chig Okonkwo style tight end who's more of a pass catcher, but he's also big-bodied. Excuse me. Again, guys, I'm really sorry about the coughing. I'm just trying my best. But I think Josh Wiley could be cut from this team. And we're going to talk about surprise cuts or just cut candidates later in the week when we talk about some transactional things for the Titans, trade targets and stuff like that. But Jeffrey Simmons, it's make or break whether he's going to be a future piece on this team. Tyjae Spears, it's make or break for who he's going to be in his career. And Josh Wiley, I think it's make or break for whether he's going to be an NFL player or not. Because with the injuries, the lack of production, the inability to block, I think he's just getting passed up by other guys who are given some of those things a little bit more. But with that being said, let me know your make or break players. But who is likely to disappoint this year? And the first name on my list, it really does make me sad. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We talked about the top 3 X Factor players for the Titans this year. We talked about top 3 players who are in a make or break situation. Now I want to talk about the top 3 players who honestly have disappointment potential. Before we get into it, though, I do want to thank you again for making Locked On Titans your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting as training camp gets closer. Moves are being made. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Guys who are likely to disappoint. And I don't mean that they are going to disappoint. I just mean there's a lot of potential for disappointments here. And again, it's for different levels. So, number one for me is Peter Skoronski. It's disappointing to say it, but the reality is Peter is not to where I thought he would be yet. Now, we've seen signs. Year 2, especially towards the end of the year, really good stuff. He showed potential. It's not like we haven't seen the potential for Peter Skoronski to be an all-pro top 5 guard. But he's not there yet. And year 3, it needs to happen. It's time. Now, if Peter Skoronski just continues to be a good, average starting guard, right now I'd say he's good. He's a little bit better than average. That's good. The Titans need that. The Titans need a better offensive line, So we can't be mad that the Titans have a good offensive lineman. But here's the reality. Titans took Peter Skoronski, number 11 overall. When you take a guard that high in the draft, you need him to be a stud. You can't just have good starter. You need him to be a stud. The rumors, the reports, whatever you want to call it, from years ago, years past, were that Ray Carthon wanted Zay Flowers, and Mike Vrabel wanted Peter Skoronski. And Mike Vrabel, who had the trust of ownership, won that battle. And the Titans took Peter Skoronski. But I have to be honest, as a defender of that move, I have defended the drafting of Peter Skoronski. And look, to a point, I'm right. A lot of people said they have to take an offensive lineman. Titans have to take an offensive lineman. They have to. Well, Paris Johnson Jr. went way before. And it was basically Paris Johnson Jr., Peter Skoronski, or Broderick Jones. I loved Paris Johnson Jr. I wanted Paris Johnson Jr. desperately. I thought that was the best pick for the Titans. He had a slow start to his career in Arizona, but really kicked it on last year. But he was gone. Broderick Jones was the only other lineman that I realistically would have taken instead of Peter Skoronski. Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. And he has been bad for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I do Locked On NFL for the Locked On Podcast Network. I cut clips of other people's shows. I watch all the other Locked On shows. Go listen to Chris Carter and Nick Faraball on Locked On Steelers in a recent episode talk about Broderick Jones and how he has not been good enough and he has to be better. Peter Skoronski is better than Broderick Jones. So, if the Titans were going to take an offensive lineman no matter what, Peter Skoronski was the right choice. But if Ray Carthon wanted Zay Flowers, look yourself in the mirror right now and say, who would you rather have, Peter Skoronski or Zay Flowers? And it's hard to argue that Zay Flowers wouldn't have been the better choice. Now, that's all saying that we don't know what's going to happen in 2025, and Skoronski could take that step to being an all-pro level guard, and I hope that he does. I love Peter Skoronski's game. But when that is what is necessary for you to be considered a success, it creates a ton of disappointment because if Peter Skoronski is average, if he's just good, like he was average his first year, good his second year, if he just stays where he's at and doesn't take the next step forward, that's probably a disappointment for a first-round pick. Now, you could argue that with how bad the Titans need offensive line, that drafting a good offensive line starter is a big step up for the Titans of the early 2020 drafts. I get it, but if the Titans ever want to be a real contender, you can't grade them on this curve where we oh, well, it's good for the Titans. Well, that ain't good enough. So I think as much as it pains me to say it, Peter Skoronski has the biggest disappointment potential. I think Chig Okonkwo is another guy in that boat as well, if I'm honest with you. Chig Okonkwo is starting to get hyped again. Oh, he caught the most passes in mandatory minicamp. He's got a connection with Cam Ward. I'm excited about it too because Chig has a lot of explosive potential. But at the end of the day, he will always be limited because he cannot block. He can't be a true inline tight end. He'll always have to be your number 2 tight end. He'll never be your true number 1. He can't be that. And we're getting all hyped up like he's going to be this and that when he's going to have the same season, 500 yards, 40 catches, a touchdown or 2. And it's just going to be solid. But people who think that Chig Okonkwo is going to take this step forward and like be a top 10 tight end or this, like, I'm sorry, he's just too limited to do that. So where I think that Peter Skoronski's expectations create the disappointment, expectations always create disappointment at the end of the day. But whereas that's the case, I think that with Chig Okonkwo, the expectation of what some people think he's going to be is undeserved. Where like Peter Skoronski drafted number 11, yeah, people should expect him to turn into an all-pro, high-level, top 5, top 8 guard in the NFL. That's fair. But we can't look at Chig Okonkwo as a 5th-round pick and is clearly a limited player in terms of his versatility and say that he should be a top 8, top 10 tight end in the NFL this year because Cam Ward showed up. Like, I just think that's set up for disappointment, quite honestly. Finally, and it's not fun to have 2 on the offensive line, but I got to go with Dan Moore. I just think the money that he's getting paid, and it's funny, I had someone reach out to me recently and be like, what? The Titans gave Dan Moore $20 million a year and he led the NFL in sacks? You know, not everybody, and shout out to you, you know who you are. Not everybody is like following the transaction wire, you know, like everybody else. That's why a guy like me is around to help out, because not everybody can stay as locked in with the Titans every waking moment of their life like I can. So I keep all that information and bring it to you guys. But getting paid what Dan Moore is getting paid, if he were to give up 8, 9, 10 sacks this year and be obviously the worst starter on the offensive line, let's say Skoronski does continue to play well, Latham takes the leap to be a star, which we'll do make a leap candidates later this week. Latham takes a leap and is a great player. We know who Kevin Zeitler is. A top 10 guard when healthy, just stay healthy and be a solid rock. Cushenberry comes back and is an average center, even Corey Levin. If Dan Moore and the center gets help, you know, the center's never truly on an island like a left tackle is. But Dan Moore's paycheck and the expectation that Dan Moore is a franchise left tackle, a bona fide starter for multiple years, when he was considered mostly a backup in Pittsburgh that had to play out of necessity because of injuries and movement on the offensive line, Pittsburgh never planned on playing Dan Moore as much as they did over the last 4 years. It just happened that way because he stayed healthy and other people didn't. Now, you could give him credit for that, but just being healthy and being out on the field isn't good enough when you're getting paid $22 million a year. You need to be good. So, I know that I've ragged on the Dan Moore signing a lot. It's probably not a shock to some people that he's on this list, but when you look at what he's getting paid versus the player that he is out on the field, it is ripe for disappointment for Titans fans. And I can only imagine if we get to Thanksgiving and Dan Moore has been a disaster, what people might be saying about that contract and what people might start saying about Mike Borgonzi after making that move, because it's certainly risky. And anytime that there's that kind of salary with that kind of tape and it doesn't match, that's where disappointment happens. But with that being said, again, it's top 3 week. I'm going to do more top 3s tomorrow. Can't wait to hear your guys' answers. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. I know I was coughing the whole episode. Cannot be super enjoyable to listen to me cough, so I apologize. But figure you guys would rather have a show with me coughing a little bit than no show at all. So hopefully I was right. But with that being said, that's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.